Julie Summerland gazed out the window of the dusty train, watching the parched countryside of Korea fly by. The Korean War had taken its toll on the land, and everything seemed painted in shades of grey and brown. She clutched a letter from her father, who was stationed at a military base near Busan. He had written urging her to come and work as a nurse, where she could make a real difference. Julie's thoughts drifted to the last time she had seen her father. The war had changed him, turned his hair grayer and his demeanor more somber. She hoped her presence might bring a bit of the old light back to his eyes. As the train rattled on, Julie noticed a young man seated across from her. His uniform bore the insignia of the U.S. Army, and he had an air of quiet introspection. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, but they seemed to be searching for something far beyond it. "Excuse me," Julie said, leaning forward slightly. "Are you headed to the base near Busan?" The man turned to her, his gaze sharp yet kind. "Yes, Sergeant Paul Twigger, at your service." Julie smiled. "Julie Summerland. I'll be working as a nurse at the field hospital. It's nice to meet you." The days at the base were grueling. Julie threw herself into her work, tending to wounded soldiers with a dedication that impressed everyone. The horrors of war were relentless, but the camaraderie among the medical staff provided a much-needed buffer. It was during these long, exhausting days that she saw Paul again. He had been injured during a skirmish and brought into the hospital. Julie recognized him immediately, his face etched with pain but his eyes still holding that searching look. She attended to his wounds, their brief conversation on the train turning into deeper, more meaningful exchanges. "How are you feeling today, Sergeant?" Julie asked, checking his bandages. "Better, thanks to you," Paul replied, his voice steady but laced with fatigue. "You have a way of making the pain more bearable." Julie felt a warmth spread through her at his words. "Just doing my job." As weeks turned into months, their bond grew stronger. They shared stories of their lives back home, dreams for the future, and the small joys that helped them endure the harsh reality of war. Paul would often find Julie during her breaks, and they would walk along the edge of the base, talking and laughing despite the chaos around them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Paul and Julie found themselves walking along the beach. The salty breeze carried away the stench of war, if only for a moment. "Do you ever think about what you'll do after all this?" Paul asked, his gaze fixed on the distant waves. Julie sighed. "I try not to. It's hard to imagine a future when the present is so uncertain. But sometimes, I dream of going back home, maybe finding a quiet place to settle down." Paul nodded. "I know what you mean. I'd like to finish my degree, maybe become a teacher. Simple things seem so far away now." Julie stopped and looked at him. "You will, Paul. We both will. We just have to hold on to that hope." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the dying light of the sun. "Julie, there's something I need to tell you. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I want you to be a part of it." Julie's heart skipped a beat. "Paul, Before she could finish, a sudden explosion in the distance reminded them of the ever-present danger. They hurried back to the base, the moment lost but the feelings lingering. The war raged on, and the base was frequently under attack. One night, during a particularly fierce assault, Julie was working tirelessly in the hospital when she heard that Paul's unit had been ambushed. Panic gripped her heart, and she feared the worst. Hours later, Paul was brought in, unconscious and gravely injured. Julie fought back tears as she worked on him, refusing to let him slip away. She whispered words of encouragement, willing him to fight, to stay with her. Days passed in a blur. Paul remained unconscious, his condition critical. Julie hardly left his side, her love for him growing stronger with each passing moment. She realized that he had become her anchor, the person she wanted to build a future with, even amidst the ruins of war. One evening, as the rain pattered softly against the tent, Julie held Paul's hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Paul, you have to wake up. I need you. We have a future to build, dreams to chase. Please, come back to me." Miraculously, Paul began to recover. His wounds healed slowly, and he regained consciousness. The first thing he saw was Julie's tear-streaked face, her eyes shining with relief and love. Hey, he croaked, his voice weak but filled with warmth. Julie smiled, squeezing his hand. Hey yourself. You had me worried there. Paul managed a faint smile. Couldn't leave you, Julie. Not when we have so much to catch. As Paul's strength returned, so did their dreams. They spoke of the future with renewed hope, planning a life beyond the war. The bond they had forged in the crucible of conflict was unbreakable, a testament to their resilience and love. The war eventually came to an end, and the base began to wind down its operations. Julie and Paul prepared to return home, their hearts filled with a mixture of relief and anticipation. The world beyond the battlefield awaited them, a place where they could build a life together. On their last night in Korea, they walked along the beach once more. The moon cast a silver glow on the water, and the waves whispered promises of a brighter future. Julie turned to Paul, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. Do you remember what you said to me that night? About wanting me to be part of your future? Paul nodded, taking her hands in his. I meant every word, Julie. You're my anchor, my hope. I can't imagine my life without you. Tears welled up in Julie's eyes. I love you, Paul. Whatever the future holds, we'll face it together. Paul pulled her into his arms, holding her close as the wind swept around them. I love you too, Julie. And we'll catch the wind together, wherever it takes us. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's embrace, the past seemed to melt away. The future was uncertain, but they knew that their love would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would catch the wind and soar into a new chapter of their lives, filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities.